In this tutorial, we are going to talk about using visual scripting in SimLab Composer and the main structure of a visual scripting flow. We can access the visual scripting tool by clicking on its icon on the automation workbench. Once you open the visual scripting tool, you can find that the main ribbon is quite tidy and easy to use. Before we talk about the main ribbon components, let's take a look at this simple flow to define the main structure of a visual scripting flow. Any flow should consist of three main things: sources, blocks, and connections. The sources define constants, file paths, and 3D nodes which would be used as inputs for different blocks in the flow. In our flow, we have two sources, a string integer. Let's define their values. Let's put flow as our string and something like 101 as an integer. We can find several source types in the Sources tab. The second thing is the blocks. A block is actually a function that might take inputs and producing outputs by performing a single process. In our case, we have here a block to convert an integer input to a string output. We also have a block that combines two strings into one string and a result block that reads the value of the string path connected to it. There are too many blocks that have been categorized in different tabs in the main ribbon. Then the connections come around to make the whole flow meaningful by defining which source or block output connects to which block input, and also by arranging the order of the execution for these blocks. The green ports on the blocks are not essential, but they are very important to ensure the right execution order of the blocks, and to create dependencies between the blocks. The ports on the blocks are colored depending on the type of data that should be passed through each port. The connection between two ports represents the same color as well. After completing the flow, we can hit the Run button to start the execution, and a pop-up message will appear once the execution completes. We can save and share our flows to be used in different projects. To add a source or a block, we can drag and drop the block to the place we want in the flow, or just by clicking on its icon, then it will be automatically placed in the flow. Now we are going to create a much complete flow that would automate some repetitive work. Let's assume that we need to import every SketchUp file we design and render its top, right, and 3D views. Then exporting this file to a FBX file and then into a 3D PDF file. We are going to create a simple flow that automates the whole process to save our time and efforts rather than doing it manually for each file. The first thing we need is an importing block. We go to Import. We can read the tooltip by just hovering the mouse on the icon of the block. We can find that the importer is so powerful that it can import most of the known file formats. We drag and drop the block. As we can see, the block needs only one input, which is the file path. We go to the Sources tab and find the file path source. We connect the source with the input port. We can select a file. To make sure that the scene will only have the imported file, we can use the Reset Scene block, which is available in the Scene Actions tab, and connect it just before the import block. Now we need to render the object to the different views. Let's start with the top view. We go to View Control tab. Then we find the Top View block. We always prefer to use the Fit View block right after changing the view. Now we want to render this view to a file. We can find the Render block in the Scene Actions tab. We need to define the output file name and the output folder. We go to the Sources tab and use the Folder Path block. We connect it and select the output folder. We can put the name using a string source, but we are going to make it a smarter solution and inherit that name from the imported file name. We will use the block getFileName, which will give us the file name as a string by passing that file path. We can add a prefix to the name to define that this is the top view of this file. We can find many handy blocks for that in the String Manipulation tab. We do the same for the remaining views. As we see, we can connect the same source for all blocks, which is quite handy. Then we need to export the file into FBX format, so we go to the Export tab and search for FBX Export Block. We can use the same name of the imported file and the same output folder. Then we use the 3D PDF export block as well. Now our flow is ready. We can run it by clicking the Run button or just by hitting Enter. We can see our files appear in the output folder. We can run this process in any file we have. We can also use the folder content block, which takes all the files in a folder and applies the process on them. We can also use a filter to specify the type of needed files.